Hey guys, this is fight week for UFC 137. I'm here to give my predictions for UFC 37, Nick Diaz versus BJ Penn. As you guys know, this fight card has changed multiple times from George GSP fighting Nick Diaz and on, changing from there to GSP getting injured, and now the main event being BJ Penn and Nick Diaz. So let's first start off with George Roop versus Hatsu Hayoki. And not to eliminate my Asian viewers, but as I always say, these guys come over from Asia, and they just really have a hard time adjusting to the base of guys using wrestling. And other guys will argue with me and say, it's the, excuse me, now I fix this, but it's the, they can use judo and all these other things, but judo is nowhere near wrestling. Jiu-jitsu is kind of the same basis, but wrestling is wrestling. And, when a guy gets on top of you that's heavier than you know how to wrestle, it's totally a different situation. And that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with a guy like George Roop. And Hayoki, yes, he does have, he's an older fighter, and, he's making his debut into the UFC. But I still think he's going to have problems with the wrestling. I think he's going to have problems with the range that Roop is going to, impose on him. So I still think that he's just going to get muscled around in this fight. So I have Roop winning this one by unanimous decision. Okay, so let's move on to the next fight, which is Scott Jorgensen versus Jeff Curran. This fight, you have basically a guy who's a fast-paced fast-paced wrestler, decent striker versus a boxer, pretty much a tough boxer. And he's a great martial artist, don't get me wrong, but Curran uses a lot of boxing. He has, I think, a record of 33 and 13. Jorgensen is 16-4. And this is Curran's. This is his UFC debut also, and I just see Jorgensen really just being the more aggressive guy, using his ground and pound to really keep Curran not standing up, and just use the ground to his advantage and out wrestle him, ground and pound, get him in some, just to control top position and really just dominate him over that. And but I don't see him finishing him off. I see him winning this one by a unanimous decision also. So that's 2 by unanimous that I see happening. Okay, so our next one is Crow Cop versus Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson is on a downslide here, losing his last 2, I believe. There's been some very big questions about his cardio, losing weight, maybe he probably would stay in the same weight class, but getting rid of the belly and all this other stuff. The UFC went ahead and gave him somebody who's pretty one-dimensional in Crow Cop, which is stand-up. And it shouldn't be too hard of a fight for Roy Nelson. If Roy Nelson loses this fight, he's going to be cut from the UFC. But this is really an easy fight for Roy Nelson. All you have to do is not stand up, and take it to the ground and submit the guy. Crow Cop is known for not wanting to stand up, just loves to bang it out with his kicks and his, and strikes and whatnot. And you saw Pat Barry, all he had to do was learn a little wrestling, and he could have won that fight, but he gave him too much respect and went in there and got knocked out himself. But you just have to really do what you know these guys' weaknesses are. At this level, you have to take advantage of that. And if Roy Nelson doesn't, especially how experienced he is on the ground, his jiu-jitsu, and if he doesn't utilize that and say, hey, I'm going to show everybody I can bang with Crow Cop, and goes out there and get knocked out, then he won't be fighting in the UFC anymore. And he would have made the most stupidest decision in his career to really stand up against a guy who's known for standing up. So, but I don't think Roy Nelson is that idiotic, and he's going to go in there and grab Crow Cop, drag him to the ground, and submit him, and get back on the winning streak here to go against some guys who that will actually put him in a ranking. So I have Roy Nelson beating Crow Cop in the second round by submission. That's really a no-brainer that he's going to submit him. And if he doesn't submit him, it's the fighter's fault, not mine, for choosing that. But anyway, let's go on to the next fight. Czech Congo versus Matt Mitrione. This fight is basically experience versus non-experience, but a guy who's up and coming, a well-rounded fighter. Czech Congo is a well-rounded fighter, experienced, but kind of going on the downward spiral. I mean, he knocked out Pat Barry in that last fight where he almost got knocked out, but then he came back and knocked him out and all this other stuff. But, I don't never want to say it's a fluke, because when guys go in there and fight, it is what it is. And you knocked out the guy, you knocked out the guy. But I don't really see Czech Congo just shooting up to, a title fight or fighting with the top 5 guys in the world, in the heavyweight division. Matt Mitrione is using this as a stepping stone to get up into those ranks to fight guys at a higher level, but he first has to get past Czech Congo, semi-gatekeeper in the heavyweight division. So, with that being said, it's kind of one of those things to where I know Matt Mitrione can beat Czech Congo if he really uses all of his well-rounded skills and not try to go out there and turn it into a boxing match. Because once again, guys, you have to go against these guys. If you're fighting at this level, you have to use what these guys' weaknesses are. And if you're a well-rounded fighter, you should be able to pick apart their weaknesses and use it against them. And I think that's what Mitrione is going to do. He's going to drag him down to the ground, kind of semi-do what Cain Velasquez did, is just, a wrestling match. You have to get Czech down to the ground and out wrestle him and ground and pound him and use some jiu-jitsu, use some things that Czech doesn't use at all. Because if you don't, you'll be another victim of what happened to Pat Barry. You go out there and bang, you think you got him down, he's weak, and then all of a sudden you get knocked out because you got caught with the sneaky uppercut or something like that. And that can happen. The same thing can happen to Matt, just as happened to Pat Barry. So you want to take that equation out of it and use his weakness to your advantage. So I see Matt Mitrione winning this one by a decision, unanimous decision. So let's move on to the main event, guys, which is a very, very, very interesting, because both of these guys, BJ Penn and Nick Diaz. BJ Penn, one of my favorite. Well, he is my favorite fighter. Nick Diaz, not so much a favorite fighter of mine, but I definitely respect his stand-up skills, his boxing skills, him using his range. It's just I really love watching his stand-up skills, his boxing skills. It's a little reckless at times, but I still just love watching the guy. He does make an exciting fight. You cannot deny that. BJ Penn, I went out to Hawaii trained with his brother and stuff. Just great crew, great guys. I just, can't say enough about these guys. But based on talent-wise, BJ Penn is a very talented lightweight. And he's fighting, this is a welterweight fight, but he's a very talented lightweight. He's jumped into the welterweight since he lost his belt to Frankie Edgar. And he's just coming off of a win for Matt Hughes. It was one of those things to where BJ is really just trying to climb his way up the welterweight division. I'm not really interested in seeing him fight GSP again, so I don't know what's the point, if he's just trying to do exciting fights or if he's trying to make a welterweight run at the championship, because I just don't think he can beat GSP. I saw his last fight. I saw his last 2 fights, and it's just, I don't see it's in his future. I think he has to drop back down to lightweight and go back on a run to winning his championship there, because there's a bunch of fights in there in that weight division for him there. But I think what he's trying to do is trying to use, not get up to that heavy, stay at a light welterweight and kind of use his speed against these heavier guys, which are going to be slower. Then you have Nick Diaz, which is a great striker. His jiu-jitsu is great. Brilliant jiu-jitsu is great. He just really has the whole thing going on. And both of these guys really want to fight. They want to fight. They both respect each other. And I just really see, but what I really want to see for this fight is, I don't want to see these guys, I don't want to see BJ go out there and try to outbox Nick Diaz. He does have the power. He has more power than Nick Diaz, because that isn't Nick Diaz's forte when it comes to striking. His forte is to outstrike you with the number of punches to wear you down, whereas BJ is trying to use more of a power boxer type of talent. But I don't want to see BJ going. I want to see him mix it up. I want to see him go in there and box, but then also try to take him down. Box, use just a well-rounded game plan, and not a just one-dimensional like we've seen a lot of BJ doing for his last 3-4 fights. He goes in there and he just wants to box the guy to show him that he's a great, excellent striker. We all know BJ's a great striker, but sometimes you can't win all of your fights with striking. And I don't think he can win this fight just with striking. He's, an excellent black belt BJJ guy. So is Nick Diaz. Try to mix it up and use ground and pound with the jiu-jitsu to actually win the fight and not win it by decision. Nick Diaz is going to go in there and try to use his standard pressure boxing. Come on, fight me. Come on, fight me. You hit me harder, try to mimic and mock the guy while he's boxing him to, get the guy off of his game plan. And he's going to do that with BJ Penn, and BJ needs to not get sucked into that. But what I see happening in this game, guys, to make a long story short, is I see BJ going in there and really being able to beat Nick Diaz to the punch. Being to be able to 1-2 and jump out. 1-2, jump out. Circle. And that's what BJ is going to do. He's not going to do the whole mix-it-up thing. He's going to go in there and do the 1-2, 1-2-3 combinations and jump out before the range hits him with Nick Diaz. And that's what he has to do. And that's what he's going to do. So I see BJ winning this fight by unanimous decision. It's not going to be a finish that I see. I just see he's going to go in there and win the fight. And then from there, who knows what's next? I hope not a GSP match because I don't want to see that. I would rather see Nick Diaz, if he lost, go against GSP than BJ Penn go against GSP. But anyway, guys, that's my predictions. If you like my video, please comment, rate, and subscribe as usual. And peace. See you on the review.